Y ella va a poder vernos a nosotros así, a cada uno.
Sí.
Esa es la idea, ¿verdad? Si querés, poder agregarme a ese chat.
De verdad, ¿verdad?
¿Ah?
Hay los espectadores.
¿Cómo es la aplicación?
Ya cámara. O sea, vos puedes entrar directamente ya.
¿Ah?
Rubén. Mensajear. ¿Qué tal? David. Luis Roslo.
Como vi ahí que ya sale tu cámara, ¿cómo yo me veo lo mismo acá? Ayúdame. Primera vez que yo sabes todo.
Yo te veo.
Vamos acá nomás.
Yo te veo, obvio.
Y empezó la transmisión.
Yo te veo a vos, pero yo no me veo a mí mismo.
David.
Ahí está un minuto.
Miren, voy a llegar tarde la... ¿Dónde salió la otra?
Error. David, ¿cómo andas?
Bien.
Hi here.
Me dice acá, un segundo.
There you are. I see you. I see you. I see you. So, are you all together in one room, or are you all dialing in from separate locations?
3 of us are in one room.
Okay.
Do you
I
hear
can
me
just
or?
see. I can hear you. I see. Yeah. Okay. I kind of see people in the background now. I see what you're talking about. And then there's a couple other folks also dialed in remote, right? So, should we wait a few minutes to get started, or you want me to start right away?
Well, you can start whenever you like. I don't know if there are any more people coming.
Well, you just tell me if you're ready to get started. I can get started. Do you want me to share my screen so you can see my slides?
Okay.
Do you have the slides?
You can start if you like. I guess no one else is joining. We are 4 people right now.
Okay.
So, can you present yourself? Who are you? So,
To share this slide, I can explain. Okay, now I'm open the presentation.
So you want me to, because if I can share my screen and have the slides going on my screen, or I can just look at them in the background and you can share them. Which do you prefer?
I don't know. It depends on you. If you like to show us your slides.
Yeah. Okay. I can do that. So I share my screen and you can see my slides.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Well. All right. So thank you, everybody, for having me at the Paraguay JUG. I'm really excited to meet you all and share with you about the JCP and adopt a JSR. really enjoy doing these online meetings. So I know this is your first online meeting, and I hope it goes well. I just pause for a minute and make sure that you can hear me before I'm going to start sharing my screen. Is the audio okay? Because I hear I hear like a feedback. Is it okay? Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Give me the thumbs up.
You can start when you want it.
I can start? Okay. So I'm going to share my screen here with you. And you can see this slide 1. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay. So,
We can see it.
great. So I've got a bunch of things here, and if you want to interrupt me, go ahead and interrupt me. But I definitely want to save time for questions at the end as well, to make sure I address all of your questions. So what I'm planning to cover today, a little bit about what the JCP program is. I know Rafael asked me to cover that, how you can participate, why to participate, and talk to you about the Adopt a JSR program and how the Paraguay JUG can get involved in that program.
Great.
We start with the first part, which is how the JCP works. You may not know that the JCP is celebrating 15 years this year in 2014, so we're very happy about that, and I'm going to show you now why the JCP is more open now than it ever has been before in the last 15 years. So what is the JCP? So if you don't know what it is, it's the Java Community Process. That's what the acronym stands for. It's the open and inclusive process to develop and revise JSRs. And we also develop the reference implementations and the TCKs to go along with that. And right now in 2014, the JCP has over 800 members, and we have over 370 specifications that have been started in the program. And over 2/3 have reached final release. Over the last year, we've had each of the 3 platforms go through a final release going through the JCP. So Java EE7 had their final release last year in 2013, and Java SE8 had their final release just this year, earlier this year, as well as the Java ME platform had a new release, which hadn't had any new releases in 5 years. So it's been a busy time of year the last couple years for the Java community process, and we continue to grow the community. As I mentioned, we have 3 deliverables through the JCP. The JSRs that are developed through the JCP have 3 deliverables. We've got a JSR, that's a Java specification request. On slide 7 is where I am right now. So you have JSRs that are led by JCP community members. So a JSR is led by a spec lead, and then they have expert groups that help them with the day-to-day decisions and the work. So any member of the JCP can submit JSRs and lead JSRs. And then each expert group, so every JSR and their corresponding expert group delivers 3 things. That's why I had the stool as the visual in the previous slide. So you deliver a specification and a reference implementation along with a technology compatibility kit, or the TCK. So that's for compatibility testing. These 3 things that I show in a triangle on slide 9 and make up the compatibility triangle. So you have the specification, that's usually what's done in the beginning, and you use the reference implementation to be your proof of concept. So this is your showcasing you're building an implementation that's compliant to the spec. And the TCK shows whether or not the specification is ambiguous or not, and also if the reference implementation conforms and if the TCK is correct. And then the technology compatibility kit is also used for independent implementation. So once a JSR is final, if a community member wants to build an independent implementation or a clean room implementation, they can do that by licensing the TCK and showing that their implementation passes the TCK and is compliant with that specification. So that's how those 3 pieces work together. And every JSR that goes through the JCP has to deliver these 3 things: the spec, the RI, and the TCK. So shows you how that works. And every JSR also goes through the same life cycle, so a development cycle. And I showed you this visually on slide 10. So you have a JSR, you have an idea, you want to submit a JSR that starts on the left-hand side of slide 10. You have initiation. You submit your JSR, and it's voted on by the executive committee. And at that time, you form your expert group if it's approved. And then we go into producing your first draft. In the JCP, we call this an early draft. You produce this draft, and you have an open public review, open to anyone. And you collect the feedback from the community, and you go back and incorporate that feedback. And maybe even at this time, you start to think about developing your RI and your TCK. Usually in the early draft, you only have the specification ready at this point. So you go to public review with your next draft. We call it public review in the JCP, and at this point we have a second vote by the JCP Executive Committee. And assuming it's approved, you would collect that feedback from the community and the Executive Committee, and you would go to a proposed final draft. That's shown next in the chart. And following that proposed final draft, you would then finalize all of your deliverables. Submit that for the final approval ballot by the Executive Committee. So that's the third vote that you have from the Executive Committee, and you'll go to final release with all of those materials. And we also have a maintenance process. You need to go back and revise anything minor, bug fixes, clarification, typos, things like that. If you want to do any major feature changes or additions, you'll require going back to JSR. I just show you a little bit here, how the JCP is organized. So we have the community in the on the bottom of the slide, and then in the middle of the tables that I have listed here, you can see spec leads. So each blue circle would be like a JSR, so you have a spec lead, and then you have the expert group members around the circle. So each spec lead has an expert group, and then up at the top, I'm Heather Vancura, and I manage that program office, and I work together with the executive committee of the JCP, and those are the people that vote on all of the JSRs, as well as the chair of the JCP. So that's how we're organized. If anybody has questions, you can put them to me in the chat too if I'm not addressing something about how the JCP works. I have just a few more slides on how the JCP works. So we just kind of show you here, these are the roles: the JCP chair, the PMO, the program office, that's my group, the executive committee, the expert groups, and the members of the JCP. Other thing that the members of the JCP do, in addition to reviewing the specs and being able to participate on the JSR expert group, is they have the opportunity to vote in the executive committee elections. So we just finished the JCP executive committee elections for 2014, and yesterday we had our first public meeting of the executive committee. So if you are interested in hearing about more of the work of the executive committee, you're welcome to join one of those public face-to-face, public teleconference meetings. We hold those 2 times a year. So right now we have one executive committee, all the platforms together, and every year in the fall we have these annual elections. The executive committee gets together by phone about once a month, and 3 face-to-face meetings per year. Usually we have one on the West Coast and one in Europe or Asia. A couple times we've met in South America. We decide on that calendar at the end of each calendar year. And we make all of our materials and minutes public. So there's a link here on slide 13. If you want to go see what some of those meetings look like, you can do so. And again, as I mentioned, 2 public teleconferences per calendar year. And we have a project on java.net as well, following java.net project. And one of the other questions I get when I talk about how the JCP works is, who are the members? What are the different membership types? So the JCP has different levels of membership. We have an individual membership, we have a corporate membership, and we have a nonprofit membership. So a Java user group right now is classified as a nonprofit. So we've got about 4% of our members are nonprofits. We have Java user groups who are members, as well as other nonprofit organizations. Corporations, so companies can become members of the JCP, and then all of their employees can participate on their behalf. And then we have just individual developers that can participate in the JCP. So right now we have primarily individual developers making up the membership of the JCP. It didn't used to be that way. Early on in the JCP, it was primarily corporations. So we've kind of shifted to having primarily individuals, and as I'll talk about in the next part of the presentation a little bit, I think we're trying to kind of balance that out to make it a little bit more balanced. And I also show you where we're distributed by location. We have the largest portion of our membership in North America, but we also have a significant membership in Europe and the Russian Federation, and a growing population of our membership is in Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. We see that growing significantly. And we have quite a big chunk in South America as well, and that's primarily from Brazil, so I'm really excited to talk to you today to get some more countries from South America on board. I know I did a hangout earlier this year with Peru, and now with Paraguay we're talking to you, so that's great to expand in South America. So our levels of participation, so right now all of you are public observers to the JCP on slide 15. So anything that you want to view and comment on, you can do that as a public observer. And if you decide to join the JCP, you would be a member, and that would enable you to participate in expert groups and vote in the elections every year. You could also be an expert group member where you would work on the JSR expert groups, or even lead a JSR as a specification lead. And then at the very highest level, we do have a couple of Java user groups who are executive committee members. Right now we have 2 Java user groups serving as executive committee members. Those are the SoJava in Brazil and the London Java community. Those 2 are executive committee members, and they help us define the governance of the JCP, as well as voting on all of the JSRs as they go through the JCP lifecycle. So the governance is a big part of the work of the executive committee. We have basically 2 documents that make up the governance. We have our membership agreement, and that's the JSPA, and I have it spelled out for you on slide 16. That's the Java Specification Participation Agreement. That's the legal membership agreement, and it addresses the intellectual property grants and the terms that the JSR deliverables, the spec, the RI, and the TCK should be licensed. So that's a PDF document. And we also have a process document, and this talks about our procedures and how you would move the JSRs through the life cycle. That's where the life cycle document and the things that I talked about earlier are specified in our process document. And you can find the link to it also at the bottom of slide 16. And that's on our website, jcp.org. As I mentioned, the executive committee evolves these things. We use the process to change the process. So we use the JSR lifecycle to go about our constitutional change, and we call that effort that started about 3 years ago. We call that effort jcp.next. You may have heard that term before in the Java community. So this is an effort to evolve the JCP, and it's currently an effort that has 4 JSRs. And 2 of those JSRs have already been completed that we started in 2010. That was JSR 348. That was relatively simple changes that we implemented in about 6 months that went final in 2011. So these are all the things that make it possible now for you to view all of the work of the JCP transparently and to enable greater participation. Next, we moved on to JSR 355, and this is where we merged. We used to have 2 executive committees, and we merged them into one, just it made much more sense with the unification of Java and the platforms kind of converging together. It didn't make sense to have two completely separate executive committees. So now we have one executive committee that was done through a JSR 355, and that's final. That was completed last year. And right now we have two additional JSRs that we're doing process changes through the JCP, and I'll talk a little bit about them in the next couple slides. But we have JSR 358, and this is really a substantial major revision to the Java community process, and it changes our membership agreement as well as the process document. And this effort will take quite a bit of time. In the meantime, we submitted a fourth JSR, but kind of a follow-on after this JSR, which is JSR 364, which is in progress now, and that's broadening JCP membership. So this JSR is going to add new membership categories and enable increased participation in the JCP. So on slide 19, you can see our results so far. We've finished 2 of these JSRs, and it's now easier for members and the public to observe and participate in the work of JSR expert groups. And transparency in their work is now the default mode of operation rather than an optional choice. And all new JSRs are bound by these new rules, and almost all of the active JSRs going through the JCP are using these rules now. And so we need your participation to make that happen, to get more participation from the community. We need more people to get involved in this process before the JSRs are final. So, as I mentioned, JSR 358, that's a major effort and will take quite a bit of time because we have all of our lawyers involved from all of the different executive committee members. So that's taking some time. But JSR 364 is an effort that we're moving quite quickly through the JCP, and I'm leading that effort. I'm the spec lead for JSR 364, and that's really about getting even more participation from the Java developer community. I'm just going to pause a minute because I think there might be a question on the chat. Why were there 2? Why were there 2 executive committees? Well, it used to be that the community members and the technology between ME, Java ME was much more segregated than it is today. So we had one executive committee exclusively focused on Java ME. So, JSR 364, broadening JCP membership. This JSR, as I mentioned, was spun off to focus on the membership-related changes. And our goal here is to encourage more individuals to join and participate in the JCP while at the same time making sure that we have the IP commitments from all of our members. So what we're going to do with JSR 364 is introduce some new membership classes, first of all. So we'll have an affiliate level membership for individuals with a much simpler membership agreement. Right now our membership agreement is 11 pages long, which is quite significant, especially if English is not your first language. So we're creating this new agreement, and the affiliate agreement will not require your employer's signature, which the current membership for individuals requires your employer to sign. So the affiliate level membership for individuals will be a much simpler agreement, and it will not require an employer's signature. So we do expect to get quite a few more individuals joining the JCP when we have this membership class. And we're also introducing a new partnership members class for Java user groups. So we do currently have Java user group members who are in the JCP currently and have signed the JSPA, but again, not every Java user group. We would like to encourage more Java user groups to get involved, so having a simpler agreement will help with that. So we have a membership class for them called the Partner Membership Class. And the other thing that we're doing with JSR 364 is eliminating the fees. So we will not have any more fees to participate. Currently there is a fee for corporations to participate in the JCP. So this JSR is in progress now, and we hope to have it finalized in early 2015. So keep your eyes out for that. Just kind of summarizing, the JCP is now even more open than it was before, and I think with these changes that we're making through the 2 JSRs currently in progress, it will continue along that path of openness and Definitely looking for your feedback in this, and we want you to get involved. So this is my transition to the next part of the presentation of why should you get involved. So I've talked to a lot of our community members and gotten some of their feedback in terms of why would you want to get involved and what are some of the benefits. So this is what we come up with. This is one of the ways for you to help define the future of Java. Being involved in the early stages is the best way to predict the future and also to help speed the standards development process and become a part of the solution. To be learning about these technologies in the very early stages, being at the forefront of the new technology, as well as ensuring that the standards that we're developing through the JCP are as practical and relevant for the real world as possible, as opposed to being that ivory tower solution. So what we really need is expert input from end users and developers, and the other thing that we're looking for is input from speakers who are non-English speakers, so ensuring that we have truly global standards. So getting that input on the specifications from people who are not speaking English as their first or primary language. So that's something that the Spanish speakers on the Hangout can help us with. As a corporation, what you get is the opportunity to influence the technologies that drive your market, as well as the ability to offer opportunities for your developers. And it gives you that competitive advantage of being able to ship new products faster that are based on the technologies developed through the JCP. And as an individual, so an individual developer participating on your own or through your Java user group, this is an opportunity to learn from experts and gain new knowledge, work with the specifications, and give back your real-world experience, as well as grow your skills and your resume. This is an opportunity to give you professional visibility, so you can add this to your CV or resume, create articles based on your work, and grow your reputation as well as your network within your local community as well as across the globe. So you can join the JCP. This is how you would do it. You can join, as I mentioned, as a corporation, so you can offer this to your employer, ask if they're interested in participating, or through your Java user group, or as an individual member. And there is no fee to join. You follow the links here I have on slide 28 for how to join. And I'm also happy to, talk with you over email if you need help with any of this, but it's there on the website. So what would you do and how would you give us some feedback on these JSRs? I'm going to get into this more in the Adopt a JSR section, but sometimes people aren't sure, what they would do when we have these public reviews of the JSRs. So here's a few suggestions for you on slide 29. So you can, usually it's the specification that's available for public review. You can download the latest version of the specification, and that's available on the JSR page. I'm going to show you later in the presentation. I'll show you visually what that looks like. You don't necessarily need to review the entire specification because it can be lengthy, but you can focus on specific sections, and then you can comment on their clarity and completeness. Every JSR also has an open source version of their reference implementation for development purposes. So you can take the implementations and you can build sample applications, or you can explore integrating the technology into your existing applications, or you can file a bug on the corresponding spec or RI project. And I'm going to show you where you would get to these a little bit later. So the question is, how will you participate, as an individual or as part of a team? We really do encourage you to work as a team through your Java user group or your employer, because you can help each other, you can teach each other, you can work together, and you can kind of consolidate the feedback. It makes it easier for the spec leads to receive consolidated feedback. But it's your choice. You can participate either way. Right now we have about 50 Java user group members. I can't fit all of them on my slide anymore. We had about 7 new Java user groups join in the last 6 months. We have several Java user groups in South America who are members, and we welcome the Paraguay JUG to join the JCP. Java user groups are really important to the JCP, and this transitions me into my third part of my presentation, and that is about Adopt-a-JSR, because as a result of the changes that we made in JCP.next with Adopt-a-JSR, 2 of the Java user groups that are very heavily involved in the JCP launched this initiative in 2012 called Adopt-a-JSR. And it is a Java user group-led initiative that runs with support of the JCP and outreach that I do, as well as several Java user groups around the world. But it's a JUG-led initiative, and it's groups of Java user groups working together on JSRs. And I'm going to show you what the web page looks like later in the presentation, but that's what it is. And it really is a two-way street. That's how I like to think about it. Since it's been going on for about 2 years now, I've shared a little bit of our lessons learned here, starting on slide 35. One of the things that a Java user group tends to ask when they look at Adopt-a-JSR is how is this going to help my Java user group? And we have about 30 Java user groups participating in this program right now, and these are some of the ways that it's helped them to receive attention from their local industry in terms of sponsors, vendors, and local companies seeing the value of your efforts. And it also has helped them to become a little bit more professional in terms of requiring some more organization and commitment versus you know, having the monthly meetup. It requires a little bit more organization and engagement from your user group community, from your members. And it also helps attract people to your Java user group. So developers working together, giving personal benefits and having a global impact. So that becomes a really attractive proposition to some other types of developers in your community that you might not have had as part of your user group before. And it also gives you an opportunity to work with other Java user groups around the world. So an opportunity to be part of something larger in the Java ecosystem. I often host online meetups. I actually had one last Friday on Java EE8 with Linda D. McKell, who's the spec lead for the Java EE8 platform JSR. So we had Java user group leaders in that online meeting, similar to this one, but we had people not from multiple Java user groups. So we had people from user groups in the U.S. as well as user groups in Europe and in India, and there are a few others that joined late in the meeting as well. So it's an opportunity to talk with those leaders and find out what they're doing. One of the things that we talked about is, can you give us any tips on how to help us consolidate and coordinate the feedback from our user group members? So it's a great way to learn from each other and be part of something larger. I mentioned we had JUGs from around the world, so particularly with the Java EE7 launch, we really took that extra effort to highlight the Java user groups and the efforts that they made in the launch. We had the online Java launch for Java EE7 as well as with Java SE8. We highlighted the efforts of the Java user group that really did play a big role in delivering these platform releases to the Java community and the participation and the contributions that they made. So they were highlighted in our launch, and as I mentioned, we have about 30 Java user groups participating now, and we have them all over the world. We have many in South America, North America, Europe, Asia, as well as our growing community in Africa and the Middle East. So we could add the Paraguay JUG up there under South America should you choose to get involved, and I look forward to working with you on that. So when you look at where these Java user groups are working, it really is spread all the way across the board. On slide 38, I show you, we had several Java SE JSRs having contributions from Adopt-a-JSR members, as well as a significant number of JUGs working on Java EE7. We've also had some feedback on our JCP.next efforts, so the JSRs that I mentioned earlier. And we do have some JSRs that really don't fall into a particular platform. Right now we have JSR 354, which is the primary one. We're getting a lot of feedback from Adopt-a-JSR and the Java user group. So JSR 354 is the money and currency JSR. So that's led by Anatole from Credit Suisse. So I see you got a bunch of questions here on the chat. So Just take a pause for a minute. Okay, I'm going to come back to those questions on adopted JSR. All right. Yes, you want a question now?
Yeah, no, please. Just
Okay.
keep going. Sorry, I was not. Okay, give me a second.
Okay.
I came a little late in the hangout, and I didn't have enough time to understand what was hangout about. And now I am really excited about all the things that you are mentioning. I was working personally for about 10 years in Java professionally here in Paraguay, and definitely I would love to have a JUG in Paraguay here. But just continue until the finish. I am writing some questions that then I would like to ask.
Okay.
So interrupt until you finish.
All right, that sounds good. I'll be finished soon. I won't take too much longer. Okay, so these are the Java user groups that are participating, and another question that I get, since we've had some experience with this program, 2 years now it's been running, adopted JSR. Well, what are some of the ways that the Java user groups have participated? Because it can be a little bit overwhelming at first. Oh, I want to do adopted JSR. I get excited, but I don't know what I really want to do with my Java user groups. So these are some of the things that the Java user groups have done. I've just picked a few selections here. This is not everything, but the Belgian JUG, BJUG, this is kind of, you know, a large-scale contribution. They developed sample applications. So that was one of the things I mentioned earlier on, is you can develop sample applications. So the BJUG decided that they wanted to adopt JSR 356, which was the Java API for WebSocket, and that went into Java E7. That was part of the Java E7 platform release. So what they did was they organized a hack day in 2013, and as a result of that hack day, they decided to develop a tic-tac-toe game as a sample application. So kind of that client-server back and forth tic-tac-toe game that implemented WebSocket. And that sample was actually included on the Java E7 SDK, so that was quite a significant contribution. The Chennai JUG in India, they did several hack days as well, and they really were working with several JSRs and created a sample application that I don't think was finalized, so it couldn't be included in the SDK. But that's okay, because it gives you an opportunity to work with the technologies before they're released. They created an urban traveler sample application that used many of the Java E7 JSRs. So they were doing that before the JSRs were final in 2013. And they're also working with Credit Suisse on the JSR 354, the money and currency API. The London Java community, they're primarily focused more on SE, so they had significant contributions to Java SE 8 that was released earlier this year. JSR 310 was actually initiated by an individual member in London, Stephen Colburn, and that's the date and time API, so they made significant contributions to JSR 310. As well as to JSR 335 Lambda expressions. So hack days, bugs filed, many events organized through doing lots of evangelism. So that's really significant contribution from the London Java community in terms of hack days, talks, and events, as well as the effort with JSR 310, the date and time API. So Java in Brazil, big contributor to the JCP and adopted JSR. And again, because they're Portuguese speakers primarily, a lot of their contributions were focused on evangelism and translation. So they actually put together a whole web page that I have the link for you here on page 39 if you want to look at it. But many talks, a few books were written on JSR's articles. Many they do code dojos, which is similar to a hack day. So you can use your local terminology to organize events, whatever you think is going to be effective with your developers. And they also were a big participant in JSR 310, the date and time API. So those are some examples. As I mentioned earlier, big participation from the community in Java EE. And we have a whole collection that you can look at on the Glassfish site. The EE spec leads have done a really good job of helping to put together some suggestions for the community. So as part of Java EE 7, late in the process, more in the public review stage of the JSR lifecycle, since that's when this program was initiated, put together some suggestions for the community on things that Java user groups could do with the Java EE 7 JSRs. And we're doing a similar thing with the Java EE 8 JSRs, which are just now getting started. So that effort is really kicking off now, so it's a great time for you to get involved, and I'm going to talk quite a bit more about Java EE 8 in the next coming slides, but that effort did start with Java EE 7, and these are some of the JSRs that participated in that on slide 40. So the adopter experience, this is when I've asked the user group members to tell me what they've gained, this is what they gained working with Adopt-a-JSR. Knowledge, experience with the new technologies, lots of networking opportunities, and significantly making the standards better that are developed through the JCP. Moving on now to Java EE 8. This is kind of the things right in front of us at the moment. So you may have heard last part of 2013, there was a survey, a Java EE community survey, where they got about 4,000 responses. So the idea with Java EE 8 is they really want to make this a community-focused release, the most community-focused as well from the participation standpoint as well as from guiding the features. So with this community survey, we got about 4,000 responses, and this is really guiding the efforts in terms of deciding which JSRs are going to be introduced as part of Java EE 8. So if you want to look more at the survey, you can find it on the link on slide 42. That's glassfish.org/survey. So many of these JSRs have already started. This is showing what the community thinks we should focus on for Java EE 8. And out of this survey, we kind of got the themes or the possibilities for Java EE 8. So web standards and HTML5 alignment, a focus on the cloud, a CDI alignment, some enterprise and Java SE alignment. So in enterprise, things like configuration and update to JMS, and also JCache. So some of these JSRs have already been submitted, and on slide 44 you can see here the JSRs that have already been submitted and approved. Those are on the left-hand side. So we have the platform JSR, that's JSR 366, and that's the JSR that I just had the online meeting last week with the spec lead, Linda D. Mikel, and that was recorded. So in the links later on in the presentation you can go and find that and listen to it, how you can help with that JSR. And then 7 of the component JSRs were also filed in September, so just a couple of months ago, and those were all approved. We have CDI 2, JSON bindings, JMS 2.1, Servlet 4, the next iteration of JAX-RS, new technology MVC, and new to Java EE 8, Java EE anyway, and JSF 2.3. And then just a couple weeks ago we had 3 new JSRs, that's under the forthcoming column. So we have 3 new JSRs that are currently in ballot for the executive committee. Security JSR, the Java EE management JSR, so those 2 are new ones, and the JSON P 1.1, so an update to the previous version of JSON P 1.0, and coming forward, other things that are being considered, updates to WebSocket, batch, JPA, concurrency, and as I mentioned earlier, JCache. So JCache was finalized last year, but there may be some updates made to that. At this point, it's a little bit too early to say. So the plan is to incorporate JCache. So we will see what happens. So slide 45, adopt the JSR for Java EE 8. So this kind of summarizes what I talked about. We want to make this the most community-driven platform to date. Java EE 8, we want ideas and feedback. You can enter issues into the public issue trackers. You can follow the expert group discussions. You can comment on those if you like. It's not mandatory. You could just be following the discussions and reading the early versions of the specifications and the Java JOCs. You can try writing sample applications with the early builds of the reference implementation. You can evangelize. That is actually a really big part of this effort is evangelism. So speaking about the technologies, writing about the technologies in your local language, sharing with the developers in your community, and encouraging them to participate. So we already have, for Java E8, several JSRs signed up, several Java user groups signed up to work on the JSRs, and we've updated this glassfish.org adopt a JSR page, so you can find links to all of the JSRs there and some of the suggestions for participating at this early stage. So each JSR has its own thing that they would like, but I've summarized it here on slide 46. So what are some things that you can do in this early stage of a JSR? So being that really these JSRs were just approved for development and the expert groups for these JSRs are still forming, they're in very early stages, but there are some things that you can do. So you can look at the issues. Most of these JSRs are revisions to current technologies, so they're using the same JIRA instance that they used for the previous version. So we have existing JIRA issues. You can look at those issues and comment on them. And if you have, some of the spec leads use this SSCCE as an acronym, which is a short, self-contained, correct, compatible example. So if you have that, please include it there in the issue tracker. That's helpful. The other main thing that you can help with is use cases. So helping them to define use cases and proofreading the specification. And so now I get into kind of where I'm going to show you what some of these pages look like on page 47. So this is, so you're excited and you want to do adopt a JSR, how would you get started? So the first step would be joining the JCP. I talked about that, how you would get involved in joining the JCP, and then joining the Adopt a JSR project, updating the Adopt a JSR wiki with your plans so everyone knows that you're participating and we can follow up with you. And then you would communicate directly with the spec lead and the expert group, and I'll show you where you can find those links. And you would discuss with your local Java user group amongst yourself, talk about what are some of the things that you might want to do to get involved. And you can even have this as a standing part of your monthly meetings. If, for instance, if you meet monthly, every month you have the JCP and Adopt a JSR on your agenda, and you check in and see what things that you want to do and what feedback people have. So you would outline, you know, what the JSR is, why your JUG should get involved, and areas that you want to work on. And then, of course, really important to share what you've done, whether or not you think it's significant or not. Share what you've done. Share it with me. Share it on Twitter, or share it on the mailing list for Adopt a JSR. I think that's really important, and I would like to encourage you to do that if you do get involved, is please share with me what you're doing. So first step that I already covered was join the JCP. Next step, join the Adopt a JSR project. So if you go to adoptajsr.org, it's going to direct you to a java.net project. It's a project wiki, and I have a screenshot of that on slide 48. This is what it looks like. So you come over here to join the project. Join this project. You would join the project. You have to be logged in to join the project, so you would log in up here in the upper right-hand corner. If you don't have a java.net account, just create an account. It's super easy. Really just requires an email. So create a java.net account if you don't have one, and then log in, and then come over here and join the project. You join the project, and that would, right now we have 115 members. When we took this screenshot, we were fewer members, but 115 members of this project, and then you would come up and join the mailing list as well. So that's when I said, you know, share your success on the mailing list. That's where I would essentially put out invites for the Adopt a JSR meetings that I host. I also put things on Twitter, so it's not the only way to find out information, but a great way to get information is join the mailing list. It's relatively low traffic mailing list, but it's there, joining the mailing list. As I mentioned earlier, we translated content is really important, so the Guadalajara Java user group actually did translate this top page into Spanish, so if you want to see it in Spanish, you can click on it there under Spanish, and there you would just have, you know, top page translated into Spanish. So the next step would be pick a JSR that you're interested in. So you would have any of the JSRs I just mentioned. If you want to go to jcp.org and find the list of all active JSRs, maybe if you don't want to do a Java EE8 related JSRs, you want to do one of the component JSRs. Since we have 300 JSRs, one easy way to filter that list is just look at the ones that have been doing something in the last 12 months. So you can do that here through jcp.org. Active in the last 12 months. On slide 50, you can see the URL and what that would look like. So you'd see on jcp.org. There's JCache, which just went final, so that probably isn't the best one, but you'll have, it's a dynamically generated list, and it will generate all the JSRs that have been active in the last 12 months. So we have like a new Java SE9 JSR. We have the Java Map Module System JSR that's been submitted, so that will show up there. Next step, after you pick your JSR that you want to get involved in, so discuss that with your Java user group and then enter it into the wiki. Who's adopting JSRs? So from the wiki where you joined the project, there's a link, who's adopting JSRs. So click on that link and you'll come down here to a little matrix where you can enter. If you've joined the project, you should be able to enter yourself here. So this is where we would see, okay, for JSR 339, so that's JAX-RS 2.0. Now we've updated this, so when you scroll down, you'll get the new JSRs as well. So you would enter your Java user group over here on the left, Paraguay JUG, and then you would find your JSR, and then you would enter a link. So if you don't have a page for what you're doing with that JSR, just add your meetup page or a link like that, or just say coming soon, like a couple of these Peru JUG put link to be assigned. They didn't have a link yet. That's fine. But that just tells us that you're interested and want to participate, and then I can follow up with you with any assistance that you might need. So again, JSR page example. If you haven't been to jcp.org, what you do is go jcp.org in your browser. Over here on the left-hand side, it says JSRs. No login required. Just enter the JSR number there, and it'll bring you to the page. Every JSR has the same page. So this one shows you here JSR 310. So up at the top, you've got the title. Down here, you've got the latest draft. So you would download the latest draft. Tells you here whether or not it's active. It would say final if it's final, and that probably wouldn't be a good one to get involved in because it's already finished, and we'll probably do a maintenance or a new version. Here under Expert Group Transparency, this is where you would find the mailing list. So this is where you could join the mailing list for this particular JSR. This is where the expert group communications are going on. So if you decide that you want to adopt a certain JSR, I would highly and strongly encourage you to click on that link, Public Communications, and go and join the mailing list. So anyone can join the mailing list. So if you don't want to join the mailing list, you can browse the mailing list and comment on it. So your choice there, and then there's also a link to the public issue tracker. So this is where you can find all of the links for issue tracking. All of the issues will be in the public issue tracker, and anyone can comment and view on the issue tracker. Up here also you find a community tab. So this is where I'm encouraging spec leads to put their specific requests for feedback from the community and the Adopt a JSR program leaders. So I encourage you to click on that community link. I'm encouraging the spec leads to have this updated on a regular basis. So right now for the new JSRs, it has things like suggested areas for feedback and developing use cases, as well as any particular JIRA issues that they'd like comments on. For the Java EE JSRs, as I mentioned earlier, there's an Adopt a JSR page. So on slide 53, there's a screenshot of that. So if you go glassfish.org/adoptajsr, you'll find basically the links to each of the proposed Java EE8 JSRs. So you'd find, if you're curious what the JIRA instance looked like, if you haven't seen it before, this is what on slide 54 the JIRA instance would look like. And here also is an example of labeling your comments with Adopt a JSR. So use the tag Adopt a JSR in the JIRA instance, and that will help us to track your contributions and your feedback. And then here on the wiki where I ask you to share success. So if you have any thing that you've done with Adopt a JSR, you can add it here to the wiki as well. There's also a GitHub organization, so we have several sample applications here. The Urban Travelers application is there, as well as some of the EE7 hack sessions that took place. So that's a good place to look for some information as well. It's the Adopt a JSR organization on GitHub, and there's a link to that at the end of the presentation. So more suggestions on page 57, suggestions on how you can help with kind of easy, low time commitment in terms of the mailing lists and the issue tracker and the documentation and translations into your local languages. Kind of the more moderate time commitments are on slide 58 for Adopt a JSR. So things like organizing the hack days, testing the early RI builds, reporting on issues and bugs, giving feedback on the RI, building sample applications. Even with JSR 354 money and currency, they're helping to build the TCK. So, and just kind of to guide your feedback, some suggestions or tips. As I mentioned, when you communicate with the spec leads, include Adopt a JSR in the subject line. If you're going to comment on a JIRA issue, use the Adopt a JSR tag. If you're going to be on Twitter talking about it, it's helpful to use hashtag AdoptAJSR. I often use that if I'm reporting on things that some Java user groups have done. I'll just do a simple search on Twitter with hashtag AdoptAJSR. So that's really important. I also monitor the, I'm the JCP_org hashtag. That's where I usually tweet from, or at HeatherVC. So, and it's just some things to keep in mind in terms of the life cycle and the types of feedback that you give. We encourage you to collaborate together within your JUG as well as with other Java user groups, and just keep in mind, once the JSR gets further along, it's hard to incorporate new features. So just a little bit of guidance there. So in summary, the JCP has opened up. I use a flower as the image to show you that, the things that we have available for each JSR: public issue trackers, public schedules, public wikis, public feedback mechanism, public votes by the executive committee 3 times in the life cycle of a JSR, and 3 open review periods. And we're encouraging all of the spec leads to release early and often, so have even more than 3 of those drafts throughout the life cycle of a JSR. So really, to summarize, we're putting the community back into the JCP. What we're looking to do is eliminate all of those barriers to participation, encourage the Java community to participate in the implementation through OpenJDK and Glassfish, as well as the evolution of the platform through the JCP and the Adopt a JSR programs. So you can find all of the links that I mentioned here on slide 63. The multimedia page of jcp.org has the recordings of the meetings that I mentioned, the online resources for Adopt a JSR, as well as the JCP and the GitHub organization for Adopt a JSR. So with that, I would say gracias, and open it up for your questions. So I can kind of stop sharing my screen, and if you have questions, let me know, and if you're on mute, maybe take it off of mute, and I'd like to answer your questions. I hope I didn't take too long. I don't know if you have a hard stop in 5 minutes, but let me know.
No, it was really nice. Thank you very much, Heather, for your time. It was really exciting to understand, to see how the JCP is.
Hi, do you hear me?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I'm glad that you're excited. I'm glad that you enjoyed the information, and I hope it was helpful. And I'm happy to do a follow-up as well if you want to talk about it some more and have some questions after tonight. That you want to come back later. I'm happy to do maybe a more informal hangout where we just brainstorm and talk and answer, questions.
Okay. First of all, thank you very much for joining us today. This is our first meeting as a new Java user group.
Oh, it's your very first meeting. Congratulations. I didn't realize it was your very first.
We'll try now to formalize Paraguay JUG and try to see if we can participate in contributing to something bigger. For me, the really interesting part about the JSRs is the MVC part, especially now that the competition launched the Netcore runtime in the open, and it's really nice and really competitive in the web area. So really, the MVC framework is really interesting to me.
Okay. Well, that's good. Good to know, because actually I should mention then, so my next meeting is next Friday. My Adopt a JSR meeting is going to be on MVC, so we'll have Manfred, who is the spec lead for the MVC JSR, live next Friday. So I'll put that in the chat, the MVC online Adopt a JSR meeting. We'll also cover JSF and servlets in that meeting, but that would be really great.
Really interesting because you know, Heather, now the Microsoft technologies for developing web applications is becoming really interesting for new developers and old developers too. And most of us who are working in Java, I think we would like to keep our jobs and our knowledge, and these MVC things must make it easier for Java developers to make Java applications easier. I mean, we have frameworks like Vaadin that makes it really easy to do web applications, but not the kind of applications that where you mix up HTML, JSS, and CSS and JavaScript. So I will definitely be at the Friday night Adopt a JSR about MVC. We will try to organize a formal JUG here in Paraguay. One question, Heather. You mentioned that it is better if we try to adopt the JSR as a JUG instead of as an individual.
Yes. So Adopt a JSR really was designed for to be an activity to do within your Java user group. So you, as a Java user group, adopt a JSR. So it really is designed that way, but I know we have had some individuals that have participated as an individual instead. So I think like Mohammed Taman, he started as an individual before he really got organized with the Egyptian JUG and participated with Adopt a JSR. So you can do it as an individual, but it's nice to be able to collect the feedback from your local community and work together and discuss it amongst yourselves, and maybe even organize some kind of a day to have a hack day or test fest, something like that, and then feed that kind of your experience with it back to the spec lead. So it adds a little bit more value if you have, say, oh, I had, 20 of us got together and this is what we think about it. You can do it just as one person, but we found that it helps to kind of collectively bring it together and feed it back to the spec lead.
I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
MVC is not finished yet. Okay? Yeah, that's right.
MVC, right, it just started, so the JSR was just proposed a couple of months ago, and so when I went through the life cycle, it got approved by the executive committee, so they're forming their expert group now. They actually, will have they may have already had their first expert group meeting, so it's early stages. So when I talked about earlier, early stages, things you can do is, give use cases, comment on issues, that kind of thing.
Yeah. It's there to contribute to MVC because it's not finalized yet. I'm sorry for my English, it's my first time.
Right, it's not finished yet. It's not finished yet.
I'll immediately translate it in English.
Will it be translated?
Well, JKC is finalized, so we cannot adopt JKC anymore, right?
No, Rafael, vos podés hablar en español y yo te introduzco instantáneamente si eso es lo que querés.
Okay.
¿Qué es lo que estás preguntando? Porque yo no entendí luego lo que dijiste.
No, es que habló de Rubén.
Ah, Rubén, ¿cuál fue la pregunta?
JKC is already finalized, so we cannot adopt JKC anymore.
I think that what he's trying to say is that, he's actually asking if the JSR JSR, the MBC JSR is already closed for contributions, which I think the answer is no.
No, it's not. It's a great time to get involved. That's perfect to pick that MVC JSR for you to adopt because it's in the very early stages, so there's a lot of time for you to be able to contribute to it. Probably it will take, 18 months. So lots of time to get involved in the early stages, which is right now.
One more thing, Heather. You mentioned that evangelizing it's important, also translation. I actually evangelize against translation. I try to evangelize people to learn English.
Oh, okay.
I'm asking you, is really important to Oracle, to the Java community, the translation work instead of the advancement of the technologies itself?
No, I don't think it's a priority. So I started offering translating some of the content on the wiki that I showed you because some of the user group leaders were saying that their members, wanted to be able to read it in their own language, so they wanted to do that. So all the translations that I have were, from user group leaders who had members that wanted kind of that top page translated. So it really has been driven from the local user groups thinking that they have a lot of members or people in their community that aren't going to speak English or don't have the desire to speak English, and so it's a way for them to teach their local community about the technology in their own language. So it's not something that I use, but it's more just a tool that the local user groups have used to kind of broaden the adoption in their local community. So it kind of varies, I guess. I would say in Brazil it's been more heavily utilized than in any other place that I can think of where they're translating a lot of their content into Portuguese. Even in France where people speak French.
Super important, and they are the only best ones in the world. That's why they want everything in Portuguese.
Yes, so I think it just varies. If in Paraguay it's not a priority, then I would say that it's not something that I would encourage you to do unless it's something that is important to you.
Yeah, no, I actually asked because I wanted to understand what was more important for Oracle right now: the advancement of the technologies or the translation of the technology so that everybody in the world can benefit from it. But well, I think I understand the.
Yeah, I think that I can't really speak for all of Oracle or anything, but I would just say from the JCP perspective, I would just say that if it makes it easier for you to contribute and participate to have some things translated, I think it's a tool that you could use. But the ultimate goal is, to just get that feedback and participation in from more developers. So more than just a handful of developers on the expert group, but really the wider Java community, getting the feedback into those JSRs now before they're final.
Okay. Tell me, Heather, what is the next thing that we need to do to formalize our JUG here in Paraguay?
Okay, well, so you have a meetup site, I guess, probably, or some local site. So if you have that, you could join the Java user group community on java.net. Have you done that yet?
Rafael, ¿tenemos eso? No
Have
hicimos.
The
Sí,
java.net.
quería pedir que le preguntes eso. Aquí tenemos escribirles para formalizar nuestro grupo.
Ok, lo que yo entendía que ella dijo que tenemos que registrarnos nomás en internet. So, Heather, we can register our JUG, our Paraguay JUG, directly through the website. That's the only requirement.
Yes, so you can join the JCP directly through the website. I would encourage you to join the Java user group community on java.net. So we have like a Java user group leaders list there if you're a part of the Java user group community. So if you haven't done that yet, I would encourage you to do that, but it's not a requirement.
Yeah, exacto. Creo que tenemos que como un JUG acá en Paraguay tenemos que presentarnos en internet nomás. Y como JUG después podemos presentarnos para hacer el Adopta JSR, como ella está diciendo. Así es lo que yo entiendo. No sé si hay alguna otra pregunta.
Sí, se corta yo, claro.
Heather,
Yes.
for you personally,
Yeah.
Are you a developer or a evangelist or a project leader?
I am
What would you
the
consider
leader
yourself?
of the program office, so I am not a developer. I
Okay.
manage the group that oversees the website. So we do jcp.org, and then we do kind of like program management for all the spec leads and evangelism and community outreach and community building. So I'm not a developer, but I've been involved in the JCP for 14 years now. So from the very beginning, and as I mentioned, I'm a spec lead, but I'm a spec lead for the program JSR, so to evolve the JCP and how we can get more developers to participate. So I go to a lot of developer conferences, and I work with developers, and I work with all of the spec leads on their JSRs, and I understand, how the technologies and the JSRs fit together, but I don't actually do any coding.
Yeah, I understand. Okay. Thank you very much for your time. I don't know. I think I don't have any more
Okay.
questions. I just really want to advance the Java thing because the release of this .NET Core runtime, it's like a threat for we Java programmers. So
Okay, well, I'm excited to get the Paraguay JUG involved, so let's follow up over email and talk about the next steps. And if I missed anybody's questions over the chat, I tried to get all these questions on the chat. I don't know if I got everybody's because it got to be kind of long. So I did answer some questions on the chat, but if I missed any, send them to me in email. Or maybe we arrange a follow-up call in the first part.
no, I think it's okay, Heather. Your time is also valuable, and we thank you very much.
Okay.
Unless any of us here has another question,
No.
I think that we should manage ourselves into
Okay.
formalizing the jug and then talking to you again.
All right, well, if you wouldn't mind, send me a picture of the guys that are there, because I can't see them in my screen, but just send me a quick picture of your meetup. And I use it to talk about
Okay.
with
I
you.
mean, I won't send you any picture. It's my room and it's a mess, but the other guy.
Yeah, all right. Well, if someone wants to send me a picture
We'll
of any
send you
of
a
us together,
picture
send me a
later.
quick picture. Yeah? Okay. You don't have to, just if you want to. All
Aquí
right.
tengo una foto de la oficina, dice con usted ahí para que ella tenga como registro. No sé si entendieron esa parte.
Sí, acá estamos cuatro.
4 están en Conecta y quítense una foto para que tenga ella, dice.
Okay, no worries.
They will take a picture. They will take a picture.
Adios. Buenas noches.
Bye bye.
Oh,
Gracias, Peter. Thank you very much.
thank you, Heather. Bye bye.
Bye.
Nosotros seguimos, gente.
Te voy a ver, ¿cómo no?
¿Cómo están? Están 4 en Conecta. ¿Quiénes son?
Hola.
Yo veo Rubén, Rafael y después los otros 2.
Después digo.
Mira.
Ahora te escucho.
Mi internet es una mierda. O sea, ¿saben qué? Voy a desconectarme.
Salió bien.
Desconectemos los videos, así va a salir mejor el audio.
Ah. De retorno.
Alguien está teniendo retorno.
Después digo. Ahí.
Hola, ¿me escucha?
¿Está mejor?
Sí, ahora estoy escuchando bien.
Sí. ¿Cuándo vamos a reunirnos a tomar un café o una cerveza?
Yo creo que podemos hacer eso una vez, pero legalmente con la época de internet podemos hacer este hangout y hablar muchísimo y compartir código, inclusive con aplicaciones. A mí me interesa mucho el aspecto este de poner en el currículum de que vos participaste en un JSR que está ahí formalizado a la pucha. Eso es espectacular.
La verdad que sí.
Por otro lado, el tema del MVC también me interesa comparar. Yo voy a mirar bien ahora qué es lo que este .NET Core que Microsoft agarró y
Está
para
basado
poder
en...
comparar contra qué es lo que está haciendo Java. Porque yo, legalmente hablando, en Java pues, es muy difícil trabajar y los IDE no te ayudan mucho luego para la parte de JSF, comparado con la tecnología de Microsoft. Por eso lo que yo quiero comparar eso y no sé, ahí pues, dar nuestra idea también a la gente. Mientras más estemos, más vamos a tener puntos de vista diferentes. Yo no sé entre ustedes si hay alguno que programan .NET. Hola Elvis, ahora veo que me
Hola, David.
saludas.
No sé si se me escucha, ahora estoy en el micrófono, ahora estoy probando.
Demasiado bien, demasiado bien.
Qué bien. Me alegro, realmente me parece excelente esta reunión. Creo que tenemos que seguir reuniéndonos, aunque sea vía Hangout, que como dice David, hoy en día no es tan difícil hacer este tipo de reuniones, más todavía que la mayoría creo que tiene micrófono auricular, entre otras cosas, así que no creo que sea ninguna complicación.
Yo creo que
Así
una
también
vez
ahorramos tiempo.
este sábado de tarde yo le invité a unos cuantos para irnos en el shopping Maricar López para tomar un café a las 4 de la tarde. Yo no sé si ustedes estarían interesados. Por un lado
Ah,
eso.
claro.
Por otro lado,
Vos sos una de café, yo soy una cerveza.
y bueno, y vos tomás cerveza, entonces porque vos sos alemán.
Y yo le acompaño a él.
Alemán era pero después de tener una reunión, yo creo que por motivo de organización nomás tenemos que definir un día y un horario en la semana en donde toda la semana vamos a sentarnos a hacer algo. O a demostrar lo que hicimos durante la semana o a hacer, pero tener un solo día y así para tener tipo organizado. Porque seguramente eso estaban pensando, estos indios acá ya de Paraguay, ¿qué es lo que van a estar contribuyendo? Esa pobre gente que gastó tanto tiempo ahí para explicarnos todo, pobrecita.
Yo creo que lo que podemos hacer es una reunión a la semana donde nos sentamos con el Hangout. Funciona muy bien. Yo no tengo problema con mi conexión como la tenés vos, David. Así que yo escucho bien, en vivo, todo. Entonces podemos hacer esa forma. Creo que es una opción simple donde podemos reunirnos, aunque sea media hora, todo, unas a la semana, por lo menos para no perder contacto. Lo primero que tenemos que hacer es por lo menos conformar un grupo que nos podamos reunir, que podamos, llamémosle, confiar en el grupo y poder hablar con frecuencia entre todos, ¿verdad? Y poder compartir bien.
El
Sí,
hecho de... Sí, perdón, seguí nomás.
no, adelante.
Yo veo que estamos tres acá, Rafael, Enrique, ustedes que están entre cuatro ahí con tu
Acá
nombre.
voy a poner el video y voy a preguntar a unos muchachos.
No, quiero saber nomás si están entre cuatro o estamos entre tres o estamos entre seis.
Ahí está. Él es Rubén López.
¿Qué tal?
¿Qué tal? No, yo no es por ver la cara, mejor si quitan porque sale mejor el audio y yo tengo una conexión de mierda.
Ok. Ahí
Quería
estamos los
saber
cuatro.
si estaban entre los cuatro ahí. Entonces, formalmente ¿cómo lo que vamos a hacer? Vamos a encontrarnos este sábado a la tarde y hablar cara a cara y definir una fecha en donde, o sea, un día a la semana en donde vamos a reunirnos a hablar formalmente. Por lo menos media hora, pero que sea toda la semana, sí o sí. Y que se note el trabajo del JUG Paraguay. Me parece que
Claro.
cosas interesantes pueden salir de eso y que podamos poner en nuestro currículum también después, ¿verdad?
Así mismo. Eso que dicen los muchachos.
Y nosotros ya intentamos reunirnos varias veces, pero no tuvimos tanto éxito con la cantidad de gente que apareció.
Y bueno, y ustedes están cuatro ahí en Conecta. Yo, David, Elvis, y yo estoy seguro que a 3 personas más le voy a llevar. Entonces somos 10 por ahí. Sí o sí, ya que vamos a estar. Y el tema es hablar una vez y organizar un día a la semana en donde nos comprometamos. El que tiene esposa que pida permiso, el que tiene hijo que le haga jugar con su sobrino mientras tanto. O si no, no va a funcionar.
Me parece bien, David. Yo este sábado no tengo ningún problema en acercarme junto a ustedes ahí para conversar. No sé si los muchachos acá
Yo
pueden.
ya le invité a un par de muchachos, íbamos a irnos unos cuantos los este sábado a las 4, por eso le pregunto a ustedes si les interesa. Vamos a estar como 15, 16 y nada.
Mucha gente luego.
Me parece que vamos a hacer mucho, pero está bien. Me parece bien que todos son javeros luego.
Al comienzo vamos a hacerlo mucho, eso es lo normal luego, o sea, que las primeras reuniones vamos a poder juntar, tal al comienzo poco, después se van a juntar más personas, van a aumentar la cantidad y después va a llegar a conformarse un grupo que sea estable, que es lo natural que va a ocurrir con el grupo, ¿verdad? Lo que veo interesante es de que, bueno, hay 4 que son del mismo lugar de trabajo, así que va a ser fácil que ellos tengan contacto entre sí. Lo que hace falta es de que, por ejemplo, el caso tuyo, David, y el mío, que podamos incorporarnos, aunque sea que solemos estar en oficinas bien distantes en comparación con el resto, pero poder integrar y comenzar a hablar y conformar a ver cuáles son nuestras metas, las que queremos y si queremos hacer realmente adoptar un JSR o qué es lo que es nuestra meta como grupo, ¿verdad?
Pero como hook, yo creo que tenemos que hacerlo ya. Como hook podemos adoptar más de un JSR. Por ahí, Héctor, a vos y a mí me interesa algo, ¿verdad? Y entre los dos vemos un JSR y entre otros muchachos ven otro. Pero el hook es lo primero que tenemos que hacer, porque es lo primero que se va a crear notoriedad para la gente de Yanquilandia, para que también nos hagan caso.
Inclusive nos van a facilitar ellos una licencia de Confluence para poner ya en nuestra página.
¿Para qué es lo que vamos a ver?
Y para comunicarnos a través de eso, para subir los documentos ahí, etcétera.
Vos Atlassian, si vos sos una organización sin fines de lucro, vos le pedís y te dan todo. Vos podés el Jira, el Confluence, el Bamboo, el Fish el Stash, lo que quieras vos puedes pedir si sos una organización sin fines de lucro, ¿verdad? Ellos te dan todo, en ese sentido es interesante. Siempre y cuando los demás definitivamente también quieran usar dicha tecnología, ¿verdad?
Claro.
Y la herramienta que vamos a usar también tenemos que ver. Pues yo creo que lo primero es reunirnos este sábado, hablar y firmar un documento donde vamos a decir nosotros sí o sí vamos a comprometernos a formar parte del CUB. Y el que dice que no está seguro, que no entre y ya está. Y después vea, algo así. Y después vemos la herramienta de comunicación que vamos a usar, pero me parece que la reunión de este sábado va a ser medio crucial. Y para que Heather vea también y nos apoye y nos muestre. Por ejemplo, este tema del MDC que este viernes se va a hacer, a mí me parece interesante. A través de ella nos enteramos de algo que se está formando.
Claro. Generalmente los JUGs consiguen luego padrinos ahí en la JCP, ¿verdad? Que son los que, digamos, dan la cara por ellos para tener nombre. Ya, eso.
Vamos a reunirnos este sábado en el Mariscal López a las 4. Ya le invitamos unos cuantos, por eso que creo que...
Ya está, David, yo tengo tu número. Si me permitís, le voy a pasar tu número acá a los muchachos también para que...
Acá 0971-110-799. Entonces, sábado a las 4. Pongan su recordatorio. Por cierto, Google Inbox es lo mejor que nos pudo haber pasado a todo el mundo. Para el que no usó todavía. Yo usé una vez y dije, esta mierda no me va a servir para nada. Y después de que César Roda dijo, hace un mes que no estoy usando Gmail y no le extraño, probé otra vez y Dios mío será. Inbox de Google es lo máximo. Le reemplaza a Google Keep, le reemplaza a Trello, le reemplaza a un montón de herramientas. Espectaculares.
Vamos a probar.
Sábado a las 4, señores.
Ya está, David, gracias por participar.
No, a
Gracias.
usted, Rafael, por llamarme. Yo ni le conocía a ustedes. Y ahora de Conecta son 4. Hay otra empresa que se llama Conecta que es con C.
No,
Ese creo que era un programa, una competencia de Tigo.
no tiene nada que ver con nosotros.
Ah,
Se conecta con SEO, un evento que se organizó entre Tigo, Koga y no me recuerdo quién es más. Era un concurso concurso de ideas de negocio. La gente presentaba sus ideas de negocio y había premio entre otras cosas. Ese es así tipo comunidad entre otras cosas. Y Conecta con K es una empresa que trabaja y tiene que ganar plata.
Y hay gente que conecta con K que participó en Conecta con C.
Ahí está Carlos, por ejemplo. Carlos, ¿vos no tenés micrófono?
Hola,
Carlos, pues ya.
¿qué tal?
Ya está el sábado.
no le conozco.
El sábado. Sí, creo que sí, puede ser. Voy a ver si puedo.
Ahí ya comenzamos a culear. Yo me
No,
voy a ir
¿sabes?
el sábado a las 4. El que no se va, no sé.
Yo estoy presente ahí. Y Carlos era de Conecta. Ahora parece que, no sé, emprendió algo personal, parece.
Yo estoy casi seguro que Claudio Lescano, no sé si le conocen, también Héctor, no recuerdo quién, que está trabajando en Tigo, y otros 2 muchachos más, Jorge Jara, ellos todos van a irse también y van a estar súper interesados en el tema del HUB.
Porque Jara es el nombre de una persona que estaba acá también antes.
Jorge
Ahora
Jara,
personal.
está en núcleo Jorge Jara.
Jorge Jara estaba podrido de Conecta, seguro.
¿Qué Jara?
Le vamos a agarrar la baqueta.
No tuvo ni 6 meses acá.
¿En serio, veo? No,
Algo así,
pero
pues.
nosotros como JUG tenemos que ser una organización aparte, no importa la diferencia.
Le conocimos poco a Jorge, pero ahora es la oportunidad de conocerle mejor.
Escuché que era un genio. Me contaron unas cuantas cosas al tipo.
Porque Jara es un capo. Yo lo poco que traté con él cuando estaba antiguo me di cuenta que le aburría su laburo. Pero cuando eso ya no estaban conectados, creo que.
El personal es más aburrido de conectar, la verdad.
Bueno, gente, yo me tengo que retirar. Quedamos
Dale.
entonces para este sábado a las 4 en el shopping, en el patio de comida del Shopping Mariscal López. El que se va, se va, el que no se va, no se va. Ahí vamos a tratar de formar algo. Porque así
Dale,
únicamente
David.
van a escuchar la gente de Yanquilandia también. Cuando
Está
ven que
bien.
está organizado.
¿Está? Gracias.
No, los perros.
Dale,
Dale, hablamos, David.
un placer. Saludos. Chau,
Chao, chao.
chau.